lawmakers told Russian newspaper that the real reason the invasion has gone so poorly is because Ukrainian troops, they have been turned into mutant super soldiers at labs run by the U.S. Yes, you heard that correctly. Earlier this year, a conspiracy theory that U.S. manufactured bioweapons in Ukraine also went bio. We are joined by retired Army General and former Congressman William Inner. General, let's just come straight and ask you, is there any reason to believe that the United States is operating biolabs in Ukraine to create mutant soldiers?
None whatsoever. I think those Russian legislators must have been watching too many old cartoon reruns. Do you remember the old cartoon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? My kids used to watch it. No.
News Army. Russia says Ukraine is using genetically modified super soldiers. Two Russian politicians advanced the ludicrous conspiracy belief that Ukrainians are being converted into monsters in biolaboratories. According to the Russian news agency Kommersant, two Russian lawmakers are leading an inquiry into the suspected labs in Ukraine. These politicians are Konstantin Kosachev, the deputy speaker of Russia's Federation Council, and Irina Yarovaya, the deputy chair of Russia's State Duma. This week, Russian MPs revealed they analyzed the blood of kidnapped Ukrainian troops and discovered indications of military experimentation, citing Kommersant. Ukraine hasn't sent GM super
This is the U.S. Army's concept of the soldier of the future. This video makes it look like it's just a better equipped soldier. But notice the words neural engineering. That can mean a brain implant that connects a human to computers. The defense agency DARPA has been working on an advanced implant that would essentially put the human brain online. There could also be eye and ear implants, and more circuitry under the skin to make the ultimate fighting machine. Americans are going to have to decide whether this is ethical, because some in our military clearly want it. The super soldiers of the future could simply have enhanced abilities, or they could be part man and part machine, what are known as cyborgs. China is already developing biologically enhanced super soldiers, using what former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe called unethical medical experiments.
This is a big effort on the part of the Chinese government, and it is really horrifying.
China expert Gordon Chang says it's part of a Chinese government plan to create a master race through genetic editing.
They're trying to create a race which is far more intelligent than the rest of humanity, and with super soldiers, they'll be stronger, less susceptible to pain, just better soldiers. This is eugenics. This is creepy. There are no ethical standards. There are no laws.
Now, the French military has been given the go-ahead to also create so-called augmented soldiers. The super soldiers of the future will run fast, need little sleep, and little to eat or drink, and they'll be able to fight much longer than ordinary humans. But should we do it? George Lucas, who has taught military ethics to America's naval officers, says ethical concerns lag behind this new technology.
It always does. And the only question is how far.
And Lucas is concerned that future military recruits could be pressured to accept computer parts into their bodies. He believes they should be allowed to refuse them.
The further into these more exotic technologies we go, and the more the risks are not known, the more we must at least rely on volunteerism, if not as much informed consent as is possible.
But the challenge for the United States is, even if we put ethical limits on the super soldier of the future, it's likely some of our adversaries will not. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
threat. You were really among the first people to come on this program and raise the red flag about China. You told us that they were building a very strong military. We know that they've got the largest navy in the world. Well, the director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, joined me on Sunday Morning Futures this weekend to talk about the intelligence that shows the Chinese Communist Party and what it's doing. Here's John Ratcliffe.
It's called gene editing. It's altering DNA, and it's one of the things that our intelligence shows that China is doing. They've got the PRC, the People's Republic of China, has 2 million strong in its military, and it's trying to make them stronger through, gene editing. And that's just one of the ways that, China is trying to essentially dominate the planet and set the rules in the world order. And why it's so important and people need to understand is this is an authoritarian regime. It doesn't care about people's individual rights. We've seen what they've done to the Uyghurs. We've seen what they've done in Hong Kong. It's about putting the state first, and that is the exact opposite of what has always made America great.
What's your reaction? We've talked about what they're doing in their use of artificial intelligence in the military, but to actually do this gene editing and have this program to test members of the PLO, 2 million communists, to try to make them better and more equipped to handle extreme weather, more equipped to handle chemical attacks. Pretty extraordinary the lengths that they're going, General.
Yeah, it's not surprising. As Director Radcliffe said, this is an authoritarian, it's a repressive regime that, as a premium, is constantly in control of its people. And the fact that they're trying to use gene editing tools to change the nature of human beings is not surprising, because this is who they really are. And we had that similar experience, did we not? With Nazism and that authoritarian regime trying to conduct human experiments to do the very same thing. It's really to advance the Chinese Communist Party, and the state is what this is all about. And the fact that they would take human beings and put them through this is quite something else. And the ethical questions that surround that are certainly serious. It's one thing to use techniques like that to control disease. It's another thing when you're altering human beings. That is clearly something that the United States and like-minded countries, democracies, would never take.
Critical importance to our discussions here is how will the age of artificial intelligence impact leadership development? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure any of us do, but I also believe that we can hash through some of that in the next day and a half, and perhaps find some good ideas that we need to promote. Given the advancements in technology and biomedical science will and are in fact leading us into a future where embedded augmentation of potential super soldiers is becoming a reality, and given the ever-tightening cycle of innovation, and if you've been looking at if you read military history and you think about it, there's a cycle of innovation, and now it gets tighter and faster and faster. And so how do we adapt the institutions that we have in order to provide the education we need as a foundation for our future officers? That is probably one of the most challenging questions we can talk about. Also, I would say the ethics of technology and war represent an ever-present and increasing conundrum of moral decisions. And I think those of you, if you've been studying this, you'll I think agree with that. There are a whole bunch of things we need to look at. Ethical implications of technology applications to warfighting, especially artificial intelligence, are significant. Human application is one thing, especially with CRISPR technology, if you're familiar with that. A divergent human augmentation and genetic modification pathway can lead us into I'm going to go out on a limb, Sharon, just a little bit. To the classic Star Trek episode. You guys don't know about Star Trek, do you? Some of you do. Okay. There was an episode back when I was a young man called Space Seed, and it had to do with genetic augmentation and the advancement of essentially what was a super race. It can happen with this new technology, and we need to be aware of that.